Okay, good evening everyone, and thank you very much for joining myself and Jess this evening. Sorry for the slight delay. We were just trying to make sure we had the best internet connections we could find. For some reason, both of our internet seem to be playing up a little bit, so hopefully you can hear us okay, and you'll be able to see the presentation as we go through. As with all of our webinars in this series, this is being run in association with SAS, and we're very grateful for their support. You will see on the bottom right hand side of your webinar control panel a chat function. If you have any questions that you'd like to ask Jess during the session, please drop them into the chat function, and I will monitor these as we go through, and hopefully at the end we'll have time to pick up on a few of these as well. If there are any that we haven't addressed during the presentation, we can pop them into a Q&A that we'll put up with the recording onto our website afterwards. I had the great pleasure of meeting Jess in 2011 when she started on the DICE programme, which was then known as ACE, Advanced Apprenticeship in Sporting Excellence. And it was an absolute privilege to work with her for 2 years through that programme and watch her win her junior gold medal at the World Championships, the first PB women's athlete to win a singles championship title. So Jess, I just wanted to start by asking you how you got involved in the sport, and tell everyone that's listening a little bit about that and where that was.
So I got involved in the sport through Hollingworth Lake Rowing Club in the northwest of England, and they were part of the Project Awesome scheme that British Rowing at the time were rolling out, where if they got children in from schools, local schools, they would give them a launch, some boats, and a bit more support. So they came to my school, and a couple of the juniors at the time, Ruth and Lucy Volchak, that were doing really well, came in on ergos, and yeah, I thought I'd give it a go.
And what was it like rowing at a club, and how did you move from being a rider to rowing at a club like Hollingworth?
So Hollingworth was awesome. There's probably was just those people really as juniors. There were really not many juniors at the time at the club, and I came in because they came into school and I'd broken my arm. I'd been riding my horses since I was about 3 years old, and when I was about 13, I got kicked off my horse by another horse, and it just connected with my elbow and completely broke it and crushed it. And so I couldn't straighten my elbow, and then I didn't do my physio because it was boring and it hurt. So my mum was like, you get yourself down to that rowing club because it might straighten your arm, and it never did. My arm's still bent.
I'm just flicking through a few pictures.
So yeah, Hollingworth was awesome, and there I got introduced to Ian John, who you can see in the picture with me, and I was the first. He'd just come back from a break from rowing for quite a few years from having his children and things, and he'd always rowed at Hollingworth since he was about like 12 himself. So he came back from a break, and I was the first person he ever coached, and yeah, we just got on really well.
I'll flick through a few more of these pictures because I think there's a few more of some of the successes here. I don't know whether you want to talk about this one.
I think that was at the Jubilee Regatta, is that what it was called? And there we raced, I think everyone was just in one category, and you had your subcategories, so you get the medal from where you placed in that, but I think we came third overall. But yeah, it was really fun. Me and Emily just jumped in the double, and yeah, it was really, really good. Me and Emily did our very first race against each other. So it was Emily's first race and my first race when we were like 12. And yeah, she crashed, and then we re-raced, and she beat me. And she beat me for like the first full year. But yeah, me and Emily have grown up together, and we're in the team together now. And yeah, it's really cool. We've known each other since we were like 12.
That's really nice. That's really nice. Okay, so you obviously moved through junior competitions with you know, some success there, as you can see. Do you want to talk us through this phase of your junior career?
So this was my very first Junior Worlds and Worlds, and I wasn't actually going to trial for the juniors this year. I was just going to go for the J16 GB France match, and me and my coach decided, oh, we may as well just go with the junior one as well, because then at least we'll have seen the process for when I'm a bit older. And yeah, I managed to get in this quad, and it was a baptism of fire. It was so fun. I learned so much because I never really rode crew boats, because there wasn't really meant. We all just kind of did singles, because I was the only person my age at Hollingworth rowing. So then I was just in my single all the time. And so yeah, I was put at bow and steered, and it was all learning on the job quickly, but it was really good fun. We didn't get the result that we wanted, because we had some older girls, and we were a good crew, but we just didn't really get everything out of ourselves. So that definitely lit a fire in me that was like, okay, we can do better, and I wanted to come back the next year and the next year.
Okay, and obviously you did come back the next year, and then the following year again. Oh, we've got Henley in the mix as well. Do you want to talk about the Henley result as well?
Yeah, well, Henley women's regatta, and it was kind of an awesome first 5 years of my rowing career, where Ian, my mum, Ian's wife, we'd all just put the boat on the roof of the car, jump in the car, and just go through all these different competitions. And it was just like, oh, just go try your best. And looking back, it was one of some of the best years of my rowing, because it was just, I trained hard when I was at home, and then we'd just go away and yeah, I'd do well. And it was I have so many memories of just traveling around with my mum, Ian, and Denise. It was great.
And I, as I said at the beginning, I was privileged to watch this race, Jess, and also to have the privilege of being there with your little support team that you just mentioned. They looked after me very well, and I had a great time getting to know them as well. But do you want to talk through this a little bit?
So that was my final year in juniors. I was 18, and I'd done the quad the previous 2 years, and we come 7th both times, kind of underperformed. And the second year it was due to more relationships in the boat, that people didn't get on very well, I think, and we just didn't get nowhere near the amount of talent we had. And so then I went to the junior selector after the race and was like, I'm coming back and I want to be in the single. And so I kind of set that precedent for myself, and I had to do it. So I was just had the bit between my teeth, and I was like, well, whatever result I get, it's mine. And I know that every session at home I'll have tried my best, and whatever result I get, I'll be happy with, because I know that I'll have done everything I possibly could have done. So yeah, that was awesome. I mean, I think I was coming last at a K, and I was like, it's now or never. So I had to pull my finger out, and I managed to, and I can believe it. But yeah, that was incredible.
It was a fantastic experience, and it was great to be there, Jess. So thank you for pulling it out of the bag and pushing on through from that K and getting that result. Does your mum watch any of your races now?
No.
No.
She doesn't bother coming anymore. I was like, you just wasted your. She came to under 23s, and she went home the day before the finals. After that, I was like, no, just don't even bother.
So poor Jess's mum just couldn't bear to watch. So didn't actually see her daughter win the World Championship gold medal despite being there. Okay, Jess, you have started to sort of allude to maybe some of these people, but I just wondered if you could elaborate a little bit on some of the people that have inspired your journey, maybe particularly in the early years, and those that have influenced you and sort of played a key role in that journey so far.
So the first, I'd definitely say Ian. We met when I was like 12, and he was just such an awesome coach. Like, I would always be the one being like, can I do more training? Can I do more training? And he'd take the whole picture in and he'd be like, you know, yeah, all right, we can push on, you can do this, you can do that. And we just slowly add it into the program. And that's how my program built from like when I was younger. We just add another session here or change that session to more intensity or more length. But he'd always be like, how's school going? How are you feeling? And he'd always, I wouldn't know he was doing it at the time, but he'd really look at the whole picture, and he just knew me so well because he took the time to get to know me. And I think, yeah, part of that was probably my dad passed away when I was 15, and he definitely, I mean, I just kept rowing. I just kept going. That was to my mum. My mum was awesome. The second person who's a massive part of my life, because although all that chaos was happening, my mum just like was like, no, you keep going to school, get your GCSEs, like keep going rowing. And she was so strong and just kept my life completely on track and just kept me doing my normal things. And rowing was a massive part to help me with that, and Ian was a massive part of that as well. So those two people definitely just moved mountains for me, I think, and awesome people. And yeah, they're massive parts of my life still now. I just call them both up.
Oh, that's really nice to hear. I was going to ask that question because obviously having worked with all three of you, because at times it felt to me a real partnership between everyone. I remember conversations where we sat down and talked about your nutrition, because obviously your mum was really on top of all of that, and talking with Ian about how he was concerned sometimes after big events or big periods or pressure points at school that you would still want to train at sort of 120%, and actually just sort of sharing with me and saying, you know, can we just take this back a bit, and having that confidence to say, yeah, you know, just when you're under pressure, you can step back a little bit so you don't burn out. And he was really on top of that, as you say, and managed that really well. And I've got another photo coming up, I think.
Yeah, I think the best bit about it was that he'd do it without me knowing he was doing it. So I never, because now I think I get into mechanisms where I can be like, oh, if I say this, then I'll be able to still train and stuff. But Ian would just do it, so that was his job, and I just give my honest, completely open answers, because yeah, you did a really good job with that.
And someone requested at the beginning that Charlie play a part in this webinar, so there's a picture with Adam, and I guess for, you know, you sent some photos across for me to share with everyone, so I've put this in there as, you know, some key people that I'm guessing, you know, are still part, as you say, Ian, and of course your mum is still very much part of your journey, and now Adam and Charlie are very much, there he is, look, he's come to say hello, just especially a big part of that journey now.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely takes the brunt of the training sometimes. But yeah, Adam's a massive part of my journey, but he's nothing to do with rowing, completely doesn't understand why we go around in circles, and it must be so boring. But yeah, he is just so removed from it that he keeps my life very rounded, and we're up to all sorts of stuff, like building a van and taking it around France, and yeah, all sorts of different stuff outside of training. And yeah, that definitely keeps me refreshed and keeps my grounded and life into perspective, I suppose, as well.
Yeah, and that's really healthy. There goes Charlie again.
What he's doing.
Okay, one of the things I was hoping we could sort of explore a little bit with you is managing some of the big transitions. So obviously you have worked your way up through, you know, as a junior athlete with Ian, right the way up through, and then obviously moved into the under-23 and sort of development squad and senior squad. And I wondered if you could just talk a little bit how that transition felt, what you took from the juniors into that part of your sort of career, if you like, and what lessons you've learned of being part of a bigger squad. And I'll just flick through some slides as you're talking.
So when I stepped up into juniors, that was a big change into racing internationally, because it was like, okay, this is a new standard, and these people are just as hungry for it as me, and that was a learning curve, but still not that much of it wasn't a huge step. And then going into under 23s, I was doing my A levels at the same time, and it was my first year, and I was like, right, I really need to get good A levels, and I've put a lot into rowing, and I'm still going to keep doing that, but I need to make sure I come out of school with some good A levels. So I think that year I came fourth in my single at under 23s, and I stood in the single. I did 2 consecutive years after my junior, and so I came fourth, and it was like, okay, that was hard, but I don't know the full scale of it because I had this massive undertaking with my A levels. And then the same year I did the spares with the seniors, and that was really good fun, but also just like I went straight onto the full program after under 23s into the pre-worlds camps, and it was just like training like I hadn't known, but also I was not doing anything else, so then I could get away with just ploughing into it head first and not really understanding what was going on. But then I went from there, the picture, and then I started full-time at Caversham. I was still 19, and I decided not to go to uni. I chose rowing because I was like, well, I can do uni anytime, which I'm doing now. And yeah, just that was a huge transition in lifestyle, because I had to move out of home and learn how to wash my own clothes and cook my own food. But I managed to keep myself alive and clean to some extent. And yeah, that was a big change. Mum also moved house, because we didn't move house after my dad passed, but then because she wanted to keep me stable through school. But then as soon as I would move down to Caversham, she was like, take all your stuff because I'm moving house. So that was a big change as well at the same time. And then yeah, the senior program was really hard, and I think that I probably didn't respect how hard it was. So I got a few injuries and a few overtraining, and but just kept headstrong ploughing on, and I probably learned over the hard lessons over the years to maybe respect my body a bit more. But then I think the biggest shock was qualifiers in 2015. So and yeah, trying to qualify for Rio in that quad was a massive eye-opener. I thought we were kind of, I mean, you go on every year and you always look back at the last year and you're like, oh gosh, I had no idea what I was doing. But I can honestly say in 2015, I had no idea what I was doing. And Fran and the other senior girls, I don't know how they did it with me, but they got me through, and I learned a hell of a lot. I learned what really fighting for tooth and nail and fighting for your life to win a race was like. So we didn't manage to qualify, but that was probably the biggest step ever. And I am glad I did it, because we went to final qualification in 2016. And if you go to that regatta, it's called the Regatta of Hell for a reason. And I think that's what helped us qualify this time, me having those experiences and knowing where the standard is and being in those situations and knowing what you have to do and what you have to go through.
How much of those, you mentioned the other girls there, how much of having those people around you, so you went from, you're single, saying to the junior selectors, this is where I want to be, staying with your single for a couple of years, and then obviously going into a harder program, as you admit, something maybe that was harder than you thought it was going to be. How much of a part of having those other athletes around you with the same goals, whilst initially you said, well, actually everyone's fighting for this place now and they're all working as hard, how much of did those athletes, you know, influence where maybe your head is now or where you are now?
Hugely. They definitely looked after me. I think once you've been, I think they knew, because they've been my age and come into the program themselves, they definitely knew that I didn't, they knew where I was at and they'd been through it themselves. So I think although they were talking about marriage and mortgages and things like that, and I was like, oh my God, I need to do that. Whereas when we got this new Olympiad and more people my age, I was like, okay, no, I'm fine. But they were massive. They massively helped me through. And going back to isolation, in the isolation training now, I try and pull on like my experience of training on my own and things, but it's definitely made me realize how much of a team athlete I am, and how much drawing on the whole team's energy and having this different people to talk to is massive. Like however you're feeling, there's always someone that's going to be feeling similar to you, and you just, yeah, I love training in the team and the squad. Yeah, they're a massive part of it.
This is one picture that I really like. I think that that sums it up quite well, doesn't it, what you were just saying about how much you share with those people and what it means to be part of a team.
Yeah, I think a massive thing that I realized, because I was always a bit like, oh, I could fancy the single again, but I was a bit like, we always reminisce about races and we always talk about like what happened in it and what everyone was thinking. I know you said that and all that, but when you're in the single, you don't have that. You can just kind of tell the story from your perspective and everyone's listening, but you don't have that kind of, oh yeah, and adding, and yeah. So I do love that bit of it as well. It is awesome, like winning in a crew is really cool.
And so obviously you alluded to the fact that you're training in isolation. How has that been, and how have you managed to sort of stay in touch with you know, the girls around you and keep each other motivated?
It's been, I think it definitely has its positives and negatives. So like you're a lot more autonomous and you can choose when you do your training, and sorry, Charlie's just going mad, he's really putting me off. Yeah, but the negatives is probably when you're at Caversham and you're in routine and you're moving through the sessions with each other, you can just get swept up and it's much easier. The motivation's much easier, and you're a bit like, oh, if I get this session done, well, I can go home and have a cup of tea and settle down. But when you're in isolation, you're like, I'm already settled down having a cup of tea at home. So I think the positives are like, it's your time and you can do it in your own time, and yeah, it definitely has its positives but also its negatives.
And have you been able to sort of stay, I'm guessing you know you're in touch with everyone,
yeah,
keeping each other sort of motivated from that side of things?
Yeah, so we have like they have had huge team meetings, and then we have our sculling team meetings and things like that, and then just keeping in touch one-on-one with the girls is nice. And yeah, you need to keep in touch with people to keep staying, I think.
And you talked a little bit earlier on about the ways that you kind of wind down away from the sport. So I guess I wanted to ask the question, for those that don't know you as well, sorry, I've got a glint off my glasses, do apologise, let me see if it's better if I take them off. What makes Jess Jess? So what do you do away from rowing? Who is Jess Leyden outside of rowing?
So when I was growing up, I had the Pennines and the moors to just go wherever on, and two big Newfoundlands to walk. So I used to go for hours walking. No matter how much training I'd done, I could always walk for a few hours and love that. And then I think when I moved to Henley, I just was out all the time with my friends, and I kind of missed that a bit. So and now I live between Reading and Oxford, and there's much more countryside, and I love just being able to step out my door into countryside and take the dog a walk, and we go supping, me and Adam take our supboards out, and that's really fun, especially as we're not allowed on the water yet still, so at least I can get on the water on my supboard. We do cars up, we've got a Mini, I had a Land Rover, Defender pickup. I'm a bit of a petrol head. So yeah, I'm doing a part-time engineering degree, so I'll have a full master's by the time I've finished rowing, hopefully. So I really enjoy that, and yeah, that's about me. Just do a bit of everything.
It was really good to hear, and I put this picture up then because you talked about doing up the cars, and obviously I know that you mimicked a photo here, so it's probably quite a special share with us. And I'm really interested to hear that you're studying, and I wonder, for those that are listening that are athletes that are looking at, you know, I know there's some juniors listening and some junior coaches, so those athletes that are in their junior sort of years at the moment, obviously they've had an unsettling year as well. Some of them won't get to do their final, you know, races as juniors. For those that are thinking of, you know, aiming for a career in the sport as well, how important has it been to come back to that education you talked about? Because that was always the thing that you said you were going to do, was to get involved in engineering. So how have you, could you talk a bit about how you've managed to make that work whilst you're a full-time athlete?
So the first year I was a senior, I just had to concentrate on living and training, and then the next year I started my open uni degree. So the open uni is great because I decided to go with them because they kind of expect you not to be there, so I didn't have to keep, I was like, well, I don't have to tell them when I'm out the country or when training is clashing and stuff. So that's why I chose them, and they were all accredited. So they're accredited with professional qualifications, so I can still use my education to get chartership and stuff. And also, yeah, I find it a massive release. So like, I feel like if I get injured, I've always got my engineering to go do, so I'm always advancing in my life in some way, and that not everything that I do is just to get to do rowing. So I'm not just this one-dimensional person. I'm a whole person, which rowing is part of, and that just helps me de-stress. Even though there's more workload, I'm a lot less stressed because I have my finger in more pies and I get to speak to more people, and I'm still, if I have a bad day at rowing, I still can have a good day in engineering and learn some new things. And yeah, it's like, I know that I'll be able to do something after rowing, so it's not like, everything's hanging on it.
That's really interesting to hear. Thank you for sharing that. You talked a little bit about some of the injuries that you've had, or the fact that you've been injured, particularly when you sort of upped the training and moved to the full-time training program at Calsham. How have you managed those times sort of during rehabilitation and when you've been injured, and what do you think the key sort of factor that's helped you through those? Is it a mental strength?
Yeah, it's definitely a mental strength, because no matter how sorry you feel for yourself, you've still got to be disciplined and do your rehab and make sure that you're crossing all the boxes so that the same mistake doesn't happen again. So you've got to work out why it happened, what else needs strengthening and fixing to make it not happen again. It might not just be the problem thing that you're trying to fix. You're trying to fix the other parts of your body. I think your team gets you through, because you're definitely like, well, they're out on the water and I want to get back there and I want to be part of the quad again. I think the hardest times are when I've had to pull out and my quad is still racing and they've not had the best time. and then you just feel quite guilty, but then you talk it through and they just want you to get better and they'll support you no matter what, and they know you're trying your best. And yeah, there's a lot of dimensions to an injury, and every injury is different. It might be icing around the clock, but you'll do anything to make sure that you can get back quickly in the best way. You definitely spend a lot more hours with the physio.
And has that been, I guess that would probably be quite a difficult or different sort of scenario to get used to, coming from a small club where it's very much you and Ian working together, being the only athlete at your club at your age group, to going to not only having more athletes around you, but actually having a bigger support network in terms of coaches and physios and things. How does that work? How do you manage that dynamic?
You've just got to make sure that you're not, you got to make sure that you're reaching out, because they've got about 70 athletes that they need to keep an eye on, so they're not going to be chasing you. You need to make sure that you're checking in, make sure that you're redoing your robustness circuits and advancing them and checking in to have an MOT every now and again if you're not getting injured. Like, just because you're not injured doesn't mean that you shouldn't be using the support staff. And I think, yeah, they encourage you to do that, because then in the long run you're not going to get a big injury because you're keeping on top of all of it and all aspects. And yeah, making sure that you're proactive to reach out to those people. But when we were on our own in Hollingworth, I think Ian was massively helpful in me not getting injured, because he had a big back injury when he was younger, and someone just it spasmed when he was doing a squat, and someone just laid him on his front and walked up his back, and then his back was never the same again. So I think he was definitely extremely careful. If I ever got a niggle, then it was like, no, you're hurting, let's change this, change that. Because he also knew that I would never really say unless it was really hurting. So yeah, we kind of had that trust and balance, and made sure I never got really injured. I was also pretty lucky, probably.
Yeah, I mean, that relationship that you had obviously was very special, and you've talked about him being one of the key influential people in your rowing career. You said that he took the time to sort of get to know you and make sure that there was that trust there. If you could pick, I know this is maybe a hard question to answer, maybe not a fair one, but if you could pick one trait that Ian had that you feel really made him who he is and the coach that he was with you, could you do that? What would that be, or was there just too many?
Yeah, I'd say he was very patient. So I've had like so when I've got into trouble with injuries is when the coach has also been like me. So like wanting to keep going, wanting to keep training, and just like wanting to keep going no matter what. And me maybe using them as an excuse to be like, oh, well, they've told me to train, so I must train, and then I get injured. Whereas Ian was very patient. He kind of knew that we'd done loads of work, so to take a bit more time to get things right and do things the right way, and things like that, and to trust that if I was saying something hurt, it hurt, so then we'd be more patient about it. So yeah, I think patience is massive, because in sport you can get a bit carried away with, oh, this race is coming up, this race is but then it's like, well, I have done a lot of training, and if I just be a bit more patient here or with this, then in the long run it's going to benefit.
Brilliant, thanks for that. So we've got to the point where if anyone has any other questions that we haven't covered that you thought we might, that we can ask Jess, you can put them into the chat or into and then I'll be alerted that there's a question. If everyone's just happy listening, I was just going to ask one more question, Jess. So obviously Tokyo 2020 is being postponed to 2021. Are you yet in a position to say what your goals will be after that, and what you're currently sort of aiming for? Am I allowed to ask that?
I think there's a lot of feelings around Tokyo. So this will be my 7th year trying to get to an Olympics, and I still haven't got there on the senior team. And yeah, I think being selected and then a few days after it being cancelled is also something you need to work through. And also just being in isolation when all this is happening. But I think no, I think my eyes are just definitely fixed on Tokyo still, and I want to do the best job I possibly can there and get there, get selected again. And yeah, no, I haven't. I'm not thinking past that, because I don't think you know how you're going to feel until you've been there or done it. Or so yeah, just taking one step at a time and making sure that I do this job well and do my best.
Well, I'm sure everyone would join me in wishing you the best for that, and for Tokyo 2020 in 2021. Is there, nothing's popped up on my screen at the moment, I don't think. I'm just trying to have a quick look to see if there's any other questions that have popped up that I haven't addressed. Okay, no, I can see a couple. So one that we haven't really covered, this person has said they remember seeing you at the GB France fixture, and that they thought that your catch was amazing. How would you coach the catch now to another sculler?
It's never done. You always working on catches, and then once your catch is a bit better, you finish, and then you have to do your catch again. Just, I think relaxation is a massive part of it, because the tighter you are and the more you try and force it, the slower overall the movement's going to be. So like, it's a bit counterintuitive. The more relaxed you are, the quicker the movement's going to be, and the better connection you're going to get with the water. Exercises definitely help the catch, like front end things and back end things. I think what also is underestimated, maybe what we're working on, is the organisation off the finish and making sure you're in the correct position to be able to relax to get the catch. I mean, it's always like chicken and egg situation, but making sure you're definitely balanced in the feet and organised and relaxed to be able to take the catch, I think is a big thing.
You always said, I don't know whether you remember, Jess, when I had Thomas, that you'd be his first sculling coach. I haven't forgotten that, so I will remind you of that when we so thank you very much for that, a really good question. I haven't seen anything else pop up that we haven't covered, so I will just give it a second, and then if nothing else pops up, we can leave it there. And if any questions do come in afterwards, obviously I'll share them with you, and then we can put them up on the website with the recording of this session. So Jess, I just want to say thank you for joining me and for talking so openly about your experiences. Thank you for those that have joined us and listened in and asked the questions.
Yeah, thank you.
Really lovely to see you, and that you're so well and enjoying lockdown as much as you can and training hard, but switching off obviously when you can, which is clearly very important. So thank you very much. Take care, all the best. Oh, hang on, sorry, something's come up. Oh, it's a great story, thank you. Do you still have contact with the younger athletes? Sorry, this one's just come in. How do you stay in contact with the younger athletes, and how do you interact with the next generation? So do you do any mentoring or supporting of younger athletes at the moment?
So we have volunteer appearances that we do. So I'll go to either schools and do assemblies, or go to rowing clubs. So if your rowing club would like me to come, definitely just drop us a message, because we do volunteer appearances throughout the year, and I'm happy to do any web Zoom calls. I've just given my kit to some clubs that need it, which I'm really happy about, and I'm gonna definitely keep in contact with them. So yeah, it's really nice talking to the younger and more eager generation of rowers. So yeah, happy to do anything.
Thank you very much, Jess, and thank you for everyone that's asked the questions this evening. I think there might have been another one pop up, Jess, sorry.
That's fine, I'm happy.
How long have you tended to take as end of season breaks, and have these varied in lengths over the years?
Yes, so as a junior, I never wanted a break, so I never took a break, which I don't think I'd recommend, to be honest. And as seniors, you get as much break as they give you. So sometimes that's 4 weeks, sometimes it's 3, and we'll see what it is this time. But I think they're massively important. You definitely just need to recharge. I think your body needs it before the big winter. And yeah, I think you need to just be able to get away and put things into perspective and see that there's a big wide world out there and you don't want to miss out on it. So yeah, I've been grateful for the breaks that I've had, and I definitely use every day of them to get away and explore. Because even though we travel, we do see the hotel and the lake. That's about it. So although we are traveling, it's nice to be able to travel and see whatever you want, the cultures. And yeah, one of my favorite, I went to Peru on my own, just went trekking. I had no idea what I was doing. I broke my boots in around the World Championships and bought them out there, completely just unprepared and unorganized, but it was one of the best ones. And yeah, I love breaks.
No, that's really good to hear, and it made me think of something then, and it'll probably come back to me when I've said goodbye and close the session, about the breaks and exploring. Never mind, it'll come to me. So I haven't had anything else pop up since that one. So once again, we'll say thank you very much. Some people have commented on how you have been to their clubs and given some junior talks and how it's been really inspiring. So for anyone else that's listening that is interested, as Jess said, she's more than happy to come and do that, as long as obviously it fits in with where they are and where they are in their training. It was around the hotels. People don't really get, do they, that you literally do only see the hotel and the venue. But it's and you see the beautiful waters maybe in addition. But okay, I will let you go, Jess, to your Thursday evening. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you everyone else for listening, and hopefully we'll see you all back on the water very soon. Take care. Good night.
Thank you very much. Bye.